Oh, thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. Firstly, let me just thank you for the opportunity for the IoT mission Constellation. So hopefully this can be one of the gateways that we can use to solve some of our pressing issues in our respective countries. The mission that we have come up with, this side that we want to be looking into, is the mitigation of human-wildlife conflict. This is a very, very serious issue in Botswana, whereby we have all kinds of animals that are capable of inflicting damage both to human livelihoods and also human life itself. So I'm sure some of you have seen the headlines in recent years where, to an extent, where even our president had suggested that he would probably give Germany about 20,000 elephants so that they could experience how living with this beast is like. So yeah, we really believe that satellite technology basically can be of some assistance in terms of solving some of the issues. So this is how I've outlined my presentation. I'll do a bit of introduction to the problem, and then some causes, consequences, some examples, what are the current responses on the ground, and then of course the proposal itself and the current idea. So basically, when you talk about human-wildlife conflict, in simplest terms, we simply mean that there's an encounter between humans and wildlife. Generally, one would expect that the humans would live on one side and then the animals on the other side. But we have seen that it is not always the case. Wild animals don't usually lie in the wild, and human settlement also has not always remained where it should be. So a clash will always occur. So usually this will cause for competition for resources, space to live, food, water, and then a conflict will arise from there. So this is how this can come about. So the encounters affect all aspects of human life. This includes habitat and conservation itself of the species, because humans then have this thing of where you want to defend your territory. When humans feel that the animals are encroaching, and then of course also the animals also have the same instant humans are also encroaching, and then this conflict will develop. So obviously, people have suffered, for some time, sustained injuries, some even lose their lives. Even animals themselves, they have lost their lives due to the same conflict. So this is what we speak of when we say human-wildlife conflict. So some bit of indicative numbers as to what we are dealing with. So the Department of Wildlife and National Parks in Botswana, earlier years, 1994 to 2006, they did a survey, and then to try to find out what has been the impact in terms of crops and also livestock in 3 districts in the country. So as you can see, the numbers, not that high early on, but recently what they found out is that now in the between 2010 and 2014, that almost 20,000 cases that were reported of these incidents. And not only just these incidents, these are incidents that normally we call them, these are actually at the level of compensation, because there are those incidents which happen and, well, it's just your loss and then that's it. But there are those whereby actually you qualify for compensation. So this is 20,000 of those which those people qualified for compensation. And I can assure you that actually usually a lot more happen that doesn't qualify for compensation. So you can imagine really in terms of numbers of incidents that really happen. So the real impact on government is actually budget, because in Botswana, there's this scheme where if there's been damage to your property, you lost livestock due to wildlife, there can be some sort of compensation. And there's a range of animals which are covered by that. So Between 2018 and 2018, the government has paid 124 million pula. This is around 10 million US dollars. So that's how much government has paid, to compensate for people. Time resource. The department spends up to 6% of their time just addressing the conflict issues. So certainly this should not be the case, whereby the department's focus is on issues of conflict. They should be doing other things than to spend so much time doing that. So since 2018, there's been over 45,000 incidents, 60 human deaths, and 50 major injuries. So this is really a sad situation that, if not addressed well, it could escalate probably to the levels where it could get out of hand. So this map of Botswana, you can just focus on the wildlife reserve areas to see how they're spread across the country. In some regions, like in the Chobe up north, you can see that actually the wild reserve itself it takes more than half the area of the whole district. So which means that area is just flooded with animals. So there's probably more animals than human beings in that area. So which obviously will result in constant conflict. And then also, if you look in Gamiland, that's where you have the Okavango Delta. So there also it houses a lot of wild animals, largely elephants, because usually elephants are really the biggest offenders of the rest. So what really causes conflict in Botswana? So obviously competition for resources, water, and also just space to live. Because usually we find that where these animals feed is where also the livestock also feed. So then the clash is bound to happen. And then of course, there's been a huge increase in terms of wildlife population. That means they also expand their areas where they live, also seeking for fresh waters and also for pastures for them to graze. And then, of course, crop damage. If these animals also damage crops, human beings don't like that. Obviously, they will find some way to retaliate. And, the outcome is that the animal dies or the human being gets injured or dies. So none of that is good for anyone. Wildlife predation. Some animals actually, have a habit of feeding on livestock. And then, of course, human beings, in defense of their livestock, they'll either have the animal or kill the animal, or the reverse happens where the human being can lose their life. Livestock disease, animals like buffaloes, they tend to carry foot and mouth disease, which can be transmitted onto livestock. And obviously, when that happens, the government usually will eradicate all the animals which were in contact with the buffaloes. So these are things which really are usually a source of conflict. The outcome of this is that animals could be killed, as we can see. Crops can be damaged. You can see your feature top left. People have to go to an extent of burning the veld to scare the elephants away, because that's the only way they can do it. Those with guns, they can shoot them. Even the government, that's the measure they apply. If an elephant is seen in populous areas, they will have no choice but to come and kill it, because it is difficult, if not impossible, to relocate it, because elephants can really travel, like overnight, they can travel for 50 kilometers. So you find that this elephant is being loose for 3 days. So it would have traveled so far that to take it back to where it should be can be difficult. So usually the measure is just to really kill it. So loss of livelihoods is one of the serious reasons why the conflict really is rife. Human safety, obviously, as a measure of protection, human beings will do anything possible. Sometimes it's just retaliation, because maybe the lion killed your cow last week. So every other lion you meet on the road, war starts. And then, of course, probably the most important one is poor attitude towards conservation. So you find that this can defeat the efforts of government to try to implement any kind of conservation strategy, because people are frustrated. So now, instead of seeing animals as not just as beasts that are out there to get them or to destroy the land, but as part of the ecosystem that they should live harmoniously with. They rather do not support any efforts by government to try to safeguard animals. So they would rather want to be destructive. So, and then of course, loss of wildlife, which is really very important for the country as well, because it is one of the highest sources of revenue for government. So obviously, these animals need to be protected for future generations. So examples of conflict areas, the Okavango Delta is one of the areas whereby this really happens a lot. This is an area where there's a lot of villages around this area, a lot of villages. So these people also rely on the waters that are from the swamps or the delta. So the elephants as well, they also go for the same water sources and also food as well. So this will always pose a lot of risk. The other one is the Eastern Okavango Panhandle. This is just where the delta starts. As you can see on the left, there are villages everywhere around the delta. These are people living there. So definitely there will be conflict that is going to arise from there. These are just really hot areas in the country. And then the Chobe district, this is, as you have seen in the previous map, in that district, about 3/4 of it is just the national park itself. So the park occupies most of the district. So, and I think this is where you'll find the most number of elephants in the country. So obviously, the conflict is also rife in that area. So it's just a matter of time. Elephants really just walk, through the villages like it's, just normal day-to-day thing. So the response has been, the first response is compensation, whereby government have got a scheme going on whereby if there's been some damage to your crops, your produce, your fields have been destroyed by animals, or they've killed your livestock, there's some sort of compensation that government can come up with. And there's also mitigation measures that are in place also. Some are community-based to try to really engage community in the management of resources so that it can reduce conflict. And then also to try to promote using land more sustainably in a way that doesn't destroy the ecosystem, because that's sometimes the reason why even livestock would go as far as it shouldn't, because they are trying to look for probably areas to graze. Also to try to have some wildlife-proof fencing around the field so that it can deter the animals, even though it's almost impossible to stop an elephant with any kind of fence. It is really very difficult to do that. And then also public education. It is important to really have the public educated on how to live with animals so that they would see them a little bit differently than just beasts that are out to destroy their lives. And then probably most importantly, and also part of today's subject, research and monitoring. It is important to always be, understanding how these animals behave, really to better identify the root cause of this conflict. Hopefully, the monitoring part can be addressed by IoT as the theme of this mission. So obviously, more research can come out of that. And then, of course, get the community involved, because the community, they live where these animals are. So it will be very, very difficult to implement any strategy without the community being part of it. So,
Mosalaosi, sorry to disturb you. We would be grateful if you could please wrap up the presentation within around 1 minute due to the time limit.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So there's been a plethora of manners in which there's been efforts to try to get data in terms of see how the animals are moving and everything. So obviously satellite technology is the one that we are looking into now. And of course the Constellation would be a good way to get more information more often than you would with one. So basically the mission idea is that really you should get near real-time monitoring of animals at risk, and then creating some geofences around the areas that are likely to cause conflict, settlements, water sources, and other critical areas. And then the idea is to create early warning system if the geofence is breached. And lastly, also very important is that usually the information also can communicate possibilities of poaching, which is also one of the big issues in the country and our surrounding countries. So yeah, this is the idea that we have for IoT Constellation mission. Thank you.